is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it appears Wisconsin could have the services of leading rebounder Nolan Winter when they face off against High Point on Thursday in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Badgers starting forward has missed the last 4 games after appearing to injure his ankle 2 weeks ago, but he returned to practice on a nearly full-go basis yesterday, just being held out of major contact stuff, according to Coach Greg Gard. Getting Winter back would be significant for the Badgers, averaging nearly 14 points and 9 rebounds per game. But in his absence, guys like Austin Rapp, Alexis Bielauskis, Will Garlock showed they could step up. Rapp was asked what they learned in that stretch without Winter.
I think it just made it kind of put a little bit of pressure on me and AB in a sense that, no one's not here. We've got to step up a little bit. We've got to come in, kind of fill his shoes a little bit. And obviously Nolan's such a good player, so it's going to be hard to fill what he was doing. But I feel like we did a pretty good job in the 4 games that we played. Beat some really good teams, and I think it just shows that we're capable.
In addition to Winter practicing, reserve guard Jack Janicki was also a full go for the first time since breaking his wrist last month. Again, it'll be Wisconsin and High Point on Thursday afternoon, and Portland Tip is slated for 12:50. Turning to the Bucks, they are back in action tonight against Cleveland, Fiserv Forum.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Well, it's spring practice time for the Badgers. They're going to be on the field on Thursday for the first of 15 sessions. Wisconsin could be working in roughly 45 new players since last year as they look to find a way back to a bowl game for the first time since 2023. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Pritt.
But just so impressed by what Wisconsin was able to do. And if you're a fan or maybe even a media member, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that Wisconsin didn't have to play on a Sunday. But as Greg Gard would say, if there's going to be a championship or if there's going to be something on the line, you want to be competitive and try and win it. But at this stage of the season, I just think rest and recovery matters so much. And Wisconsin is in the dance and has a great opportunity. The Big Ten tournament was further proof, I think, of what could be possible.
And then they go and beat Illinois the way they did and came so close to beating Michigan. I have zero problem with them losing that game and getting to come home one day early. And because we've seen what has happened the last 2 years where you're playing into Sunday. And I don't know if it affected them. I mean, I think it did. I think Greg Gard admitted it a little bit. Was it yesterday or maybe the day before? That is something that can impact you for sure.
We've had to work for months to get to this point. It doesn't just happen here in March. This journey started a long, long time ago. We have to continue to get better and continue to be the best version of ourselves as we go forward into Thursday.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Some Badgers basketball sound. That's where I want to begin tonight. With good reason. Pretty good weekend for the Badgers, even though they lost to Michigan on Saturday. We have lots to discuss. I was off on Thursday and Friday. It was not my intention to be off yesterday. Apologies. We got 2 feet of snow, and my flight got moved back a day. So, apologies. I wanted to be home yesterday, too. And it was a massive pain in the butt. Could have been worse. It's not like it was a travel nightmare. Just got pushed back a day. Had to deal with an airline, go to the airport. A day later, not the end of the world. But we have so much to discuss. The Big Ten tournament, the Badgers' seeding is out. They're going to face High Point on Thursday in the Western region. That draw has drawn a lot of reaction from Badgers fans. I feel like every year, every draw, we can nitpick and we can find the good and the bad. So that's where I want to begin with Badgers basketball tonight. I have a Brewers thing. I have a Packers thing. We can get into the World Baseball Classic. I'm excited to watch the final tonight against Venezuela. The Dominican Republic game the other night was excellent. So a ton to get into. Excited to talk to some of you as well and get back to our regularly scheduled programming with some phone calls and some good interaction. And the number, it's 608-321-1670. Getting the calls here after our first break. Just, I think before I get into the Badgers selection, the High Point matchup, our first thoughts on the tournament, which will start later this week, just to catch up on what we missed Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then yesterday. Some of the conversations we'd had yesterday because I was off for a couple of days, just to catch up and to get our arms around the thing. We all agree that the last week has been very good for the Badgers. That was a very good final week of the regular season. And I'm going to say that the Big Ten tournament, call that the end of the regular season. You could call it the beginning of the postseason, but whatever. The last week Pretty good. Nolan Winter gets hurt, and they go to Purdue and win. They hold on to beat Washington. Not saying it was the prettiest win. It got a little uglier at the end than it needed to, but sometimes that's college basketball, right? The funny thing about those Final Four runs is like I remember that second Final Four run, that North Carolina game, they could have easily lost that game if not for some heroics by Zach Showalter. Like, even the best teams sometimes have to fight and scratch and claw, and they have an ugly stretch of a game that makes it closer. So I didn't lose any sleep against or after the Washington win. Then they beat Illinois again in overtime. That's 2 wins against Illinois this season. And then they fight Michigan, who might just be the best team in the country, to within 3 points. Michigan needs to score on their final possession, basically a buzzer beater winner at the end. We all agree that's pretty good, right? That's we can all agree that can be our basis. That can be where we begin tonight. Can we all agree on that? I think so. And I also think you heard Zach and Jesse both in the intro, some of the sound that I cut from the swing. Not playing on Sunday in the Big Ten tournament championship isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. You get a day of rest, and I hate that I agree, and I hate that I'm coping. We talked with Brian Butch last week and had a conversation along these lines that we're so obsessed with March Madness, and we're so obsessed with the tournament and getting to the Sweet 16 or getting to the Elite Eight or going on a run. And that obsession, that focus takes away from some of the other things that make college basketball great. I think, as I've talked about, some big-time regular season wins lose a little luster for fans because it doesn't matter if you don't do it in March. It's like, hey, I enjoy beating Tom Izzo in Michigan State. I really enjoy games where you go to Michigan at the Chrysler Center and win. I really enjoy beating Illinois. We're in a couple of years where it felt like they couldn't beat that team. They beat them twice this year. So I get a little annoyed, and I've talked about this. I don't need to do 10 minutes on this to begin the show. I get a little frustrated because some of those big-time regular season wins that I think are a unique feature of college basketball relative to hockey or the NBA or other leagues going at this time, baseball, I think that's a feature of the sport, loses a little luster because we're so obsessed with March Madness. And I also think the Big Ten tournament loses a little luster because of our obsession with what comes next. I hate that I agree with Zach and I agree with Jesse that, well, not the worst thing in the world to lose to Michigan by 3 points and get the extra day of rest, because I want my team to win every game they play. If there's a tournament, I would like my team to win it. If there's a Big Ten tournament champion, I would like for my team to be that champion, but not the worst thing in the world. I agree. You don't have to play on Sunday. So we can all kind of agree. Can we all kind of understand each other at what's taken place since the last time we talked, which would have been last Wednesday, right? I was here on Thursday with Bill, but not on the air on Thursday night. Let's talk about the seeding. So they're in the Western region, and I'll throw the graphic up here on the simulcast if those of you are watching on the live stream. So they're the 12 or the 5 facing the 12 High Point. They would face the winner of Arkansas, Hawaii, and then potentially after that, if they advance, facing Arizona, Villanova, some of the teams from that side of the bracket. So that's kind of how it looks. If we zoom in just on what would be the first round, Wisconsin, High Point to play the winner of Arkansas, Hawaii in Portland, Oregon. I've seen a lot of reaction to this, positive and negative. I think the 5-12 matchup is very often a matchup where folks, when they're filling out their bracket, look to spot an upset. And I don't remember the statistic. I think Zach talked about it on Over the Line this morning. I heard his hit with Ebo. It was really good. And I think Bill talked about it with Mike Jocks earlier, NBC 15, in the second hour of his show, about how, was it 25% of the time or 33% of the time? You can bake in typically every year a 12 upsetting a 5. And if you're a gambler or you fill out brackets or you're in a bracket pool every year, that's probably the territory you're starting to try to find an upset, right? A 2-15 matchup or a 1-16 is a little rich. That's pretty ballsy if you're going to pick one of those, but you got to predict an upset somewhere. So typically you start to look, 12 and a 5. It feels upsetty. I saw a lot of folks on Twitter, and I don't mean to straw man an argument, because there are plenty of folks who feel very confident about the Badgers in this game. There's also a lot of folks that feel like, High Point is a lot like James Madison. They score. They win. They haven't lost a game since January, I believe. I'm not going to pretend like I'm intimately aware of everything that's gone on with High Point basketball, but there's plenty of people, prognosticators, bracketologists who have circled Wisconsin High Point as a potential upset. And I think a lot of Badgers fans and Badgers people are like, why does the selection committee hate Wisconsin? Why do they always ship them out west? Why do they always got to go against some James Madison or some High Point, blah, 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 blah. I know this isn't everyone, but I hear this chorus. In fact, I see Frank Kaminsky tweeting about this. The selection committee actively hates Wisconsin, actively looks to bone Wisconsin. Nobody ever does anything about it, blah, 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 blah. I did the last half hour of Ebo's show with him earlier today, and Ebo and I agreed wholeheartedly on this. I'm just over the complaining about the selection committee and the placement. I'm just over it. There are some draws that are better than others. Sure. Wisconsin going out west to play BYU last year was tough. There's also been years, the Johnny Davis year, where they play in Milwaukee and they can't get out of the second round. I think what goes around comes around with the selection committee. I believe that. I think some years you get a good draw, some years you get a bad draw, some years you overcome the bad draw, other years you fall when you get a good matchup or you're in a regional matchup around Milwaukee or Chicago. You have a lot of your fans in the building. I just think it comes out in the wash, just like umpiring in Major League Baseball. You'll get boned on some calls, you'll get the benefit of the other, and it'll just work out. If you make the tournament 10 out of 10 years, I think you'll get 4 good draws, 4 bad draws, 2 that are kind of I think it comes out in the wash. I don't think Wisconsin is actively getting boned year after year after year. And even if they are, I'm not that worried about it. I don't care that much about it. James Madison is talked about so much 2 years ago when they lost to James Madison. That was a 5-12 matchup as well, I believe, right? Wisconsin, the players on that team, let James Madison come in with all the swagger in the world and punk them. It's not the selection committee's fault. That's not the fault of seeding. That's not the fault of locale. That was a Wisconsin team that came into that game basically on their heels. That's on them. So if Wisconsin gets, matched up against Colgate or matched up against Montana as they did last year, or matched up against James Madison, like the players have agency in this, folks. Can we understand the players, the coaches have agency? Sometimes we talk about this thing because Selection Sunday is such a big deal and everyone's filling out their brackets. Well, this team got a great draw. This team got a terrible draw. The players still have to show up and play the game. And the coaches have to get the players ready to play in that game and coach them up and get their minds shaped a certain way and get them, maybe they might have to calm the players down a little bit. Maybe they might have to hype the players up a little bit. There's so much agency in player and coach that I think we skip over or we ignore because it's so easy for us to convince ourselves the selection committee boned Wisconsin or the selection committee gave us a bad draw. And there are certainly years where a draw is more favorable than another. Sure. But I'm just done and over with the whining about, I'm just done and over with the whining about the selection. I don't have time for it. If Wisconsin wants to make a Sweet 16, they're going to have to take it. That's something Brian Butch said last week, that every team has a moment, right, where it all comes together. And I believe he said, and it's never given to you. You have to go take it. And I think that logic, although I've never played or coached, should extend to tournament play. We're so obsessed, Badgers fans, I talked about this last week, we're so obsessed with the idea of this team getting out of the first weekend and making the Sweet 16. 16 out of 64 teams. That's 25%, right? There is no draw. There is no seeding. There is no regional. There is no locale that just like fast passes you to the Sweet 16. That doesn't exist. This is not the NFL playoffs where it's like you are the 2 seed, you're playing at home, and you should beat up on some tomato can 8 and 9, 7 seed, and it's just a formality, right? Making the Sweet 16, even with a good seed, even in a good locale, even with a good draw, it's not you're going to have to go take it. You're going to have to beat someone good. You're going to have to withstand a nasty attack from a team like James Madison. And I don't feel as though the Badgers have done that. That is independent of the selection committee or the draw. And I think so many Badgers people, I have to see Frank Kaminsky, who I like, nothing against Frank Kaminsky. It's just, dude, you can't tweet so much about how the selection committee hates Wisconsin. I just think it's a little silly. It's a little childish. I think this draw is fine. Now, High Point plays at a certain pace and plays offense in a certain way, then you could say, well, it's just like James Madison. But it's not. James Madison had played good opponents. Not many, but they had a little bit of experience that year. This High Point team does not have a single quad one win. Their best wins, and I have to shout out, there was a really good list tweeted by Scary Alvarez. High Point's best wins this year were against UIC on a neutral, Winthrop on a neutral, Winthrop at home, Furman on a neutral, and UNC Asheville on a neutral. Those are all quad 3 wins. High Point does not have a quad 2 or a quad 1 win to their name. Now, they play at a really fast pace and they score a ton, but they haven't done it against anybody. And I also don't think that nationally a lot of folks have caught up to the way that Wisconsin plays. Wisconsin wants to play fast, and Wisconsin wants to score, and they do it better than High Point, against better competition than High Point. Let me read you what Isaac Trotter wrote. He's been on the show a bunch. CBS Sports has a really, really good column, the best and the worst draws of March Madness. I was just reading it this afternoon. He wrote this: brutal draws for 12 seeds like McNeese, who plays Vanderbilt, and High Point, who gets Wisconsin. Both of these teams try to force turnovers at will. McNeese will have a tough time turning Vanderbilt's excellent guards like Tyler Tanner and Duke Miles over. The same applies for High Point. Good luck forcing Nick Boyd and John Blackwell into giveaways. Every content creator on TikTok will have some stat about how frequently 12s beat 5s, but McNeese and High Point are drawing dead schematically. That's Isaac Trotter. That's not me. That's my favorite college football or college basketball analyst who we have on our network. I think he's great. But I think that scar tissue from James Madison is very much still there. I just think these are two different types of teams. But look, I can poo-poo High Point for 2 hours. I can talk about how I haven't played anybody, and Wisconsin's better at this, and they have better wins, and all of it would be true. But if Wisconsin sleepwalks into this game the way that they did against James Madison 2 years ago, it doesn't matter because it's March Madness, and any of these teams can beat any of the other teams. I shouldn't have to explain this to anybody. This is how the tournament works. All right, I'll get to your phone calls after this. If you are interested in joining me, 608-321-1670. We'll talk more Badgers basketball, about their draw, their upcoming matchup against High Point, and any reaction from the Big Ten tournament. We're back in 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisconsin weather doesn't wait, and neither should you. At Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, we make upgrading your home simple. Right now, order today and get 0% interest until 2032. You heard me right. 0% interest all the way until 2032. Upgrade your windows and doors now and pay over time without paying interest. With our 10-year limited warranty, you can feel confident in your investment. Schedule your free in-home consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. 3/31/2026.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I think a lot of people still don't understand like what Wisconsin is now. Like I think there's still so many people around the country that still think they're Dick Bennett playing 60 to 50 scoring 60 points a game, and that's obviously not who they are. They haven't been that for a couple of years now, but they put up 84 a game. It's not like they're scoring like in the 60s. So yes, High Point has put up 90 against a dog crap schedule, and Wisconsin's put up 84 a game against as good of a schedule as you can play. I think at least the conference schedule.
Yes.
So it's stupid. Again, it's Wisconsin. They're going to speed Wisconsin up. All right, let's play that game.
Okay, cool.
What you want a shootout? Okay, Wisconsin's just fine with that. They'll play that way. Again, it is what it is. Wisconsin has to hit its shots. High Point scores in different ways than Wisconsin does. They don't have like a they're not way up in the range in terms of 3-pointers made or 3-pointers attempted. Wisconsin plays a different way, but I just don't. I think from a national perspective, they're still Dick Bennett Badgers when in reality they're the run and gun Badgers.
Zach Heilprin on with Ebo this morning. And I think that's a good point as we approach Thursday's game and listen to a lot of prognosticators and bracketologists talk about Wisconsin High Point in a 5-12 matchup. Wisconsin fans, we've watched this team and we understand that they shoot a lot of threes. They score at a really high level, and they scored this year at a really high level against really good competition. But to Zach's point, I don't know that everyone is fully aware of that. Wisconsin had a reputation for playing a certain way a long time, and I think that still colors the way that people pick games. I'm not saying that High Point can't beat Wisconsin. The players have agency. The coaches have agency. They're going to have to show up and play in a way that they haven't in the first weekend over the last decade. But I do not think this is some schematic upset waiting to happen, as some are predicting, for the reasons I think Zach mentioned in that clip, which is why I cut the sound. All right, let's take some calls. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Man, I love an opening segment where we get Grant Bills absolutely bitching about the bitching. That is legendary.
Man, you go 10 years without making a Sweet 16. It's not because the selection committee hates you. It's because you haven't shown up in some spots. Like it can't just be that you can't get a crappy draw every year. I'm sorry. I'm over it. And I'm glad that Ebo agreed with me this morning on that.
This year, nuance matters. I think height is a huge strength for Wisconsin and one of their tallest and best players, especially when you're playing against a small team like High Point, had a badly rolled ankle and an extra day's rest absolutely would have done good. So this year specifically with the nuance, yes, going out west, getting away from your training staff, getting away from that training room, having to do all that rehab on the road certainly marginally affects the victory, but it absolutely should not matter. You're spot on with your analysis of GMU versus High Point. GMU beat Michigan State at Michigan State when Michigan State was ranked number 4 in the country in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had 2 quad 1 wins. High Point is 0-2 against quad 2, and they don't have a quad 1 win because they didn't play a quad 1 game.
Yeah.
These two teams are like totally different, right? This should be an absolute ass-kicking, ultimate confidence in this 12-5 matchup. The only thing that can go wrong is if Blackwell, Boyd, Rapp, Rhodey, Billiauskas, and Winter, and Carrington, I want to call him Carrington Valentine all the time. That's a slip up for me. Braden Carrington. If all of them are ice cold from 3, we have a chance at losing this game, but that's not going to be the case. At least somebody's going to get hot. And Grant, the Badgers are going to absolutely cruise to the second round. But can we talk about how High Point's a fake college?
Yeah, I saw you posting about this earlier. I guess I didn't. Maybe later in the week I'll get into that a little bit, but give us some of the best bullet points you found.
Did you watch the movie Accepted? Like Jonah Hill, 2006, classic comedy? Okay. You should take a look at it this week. It's a fantastic film. But it's about a fake college where a bunch of kids that couldn't get into real college were too scared to tell their parents. And so they created this fake college and they got real people to show up. And all of a sudden, you had Lewis Black leading like professor classes. It's great movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm reading this scam article on High Point University where they charge $45,000 a year, and the Educational Board of North Carolina is currently reviewing its accreditation because they found, quote, no credible evidence of educational activity.
That's pretty cut and dry.
We're playing a fake college. We're playing a fake college in the NCAA tournament.
I like the term. In fact, I appreciate it. Just a couple callers I want to get to. I like the term educational activity because when you were setting that up, I said, well, maybe there's a lack of, high-level professors. Maybe there's a lack of good labs or tech. No. Educational activity of any kind, meaning learning on any level. I do need to look into that because I saw Vagabond John, who's the real Red Shed on Twitter, posting some funny things about that. Of course, if everyone misses all of their threes, they can lose. This is one drawback of this era of Badgers basketball, let's say for the last 2 years. 3, but it's really been the last 2. Well, if they miss all their threes, they'll probably lose. Duh! Yeah. Yes. Clearly. Now, they didn't shoot the lights out against Illinois, by the way. They shot 24% from 3. They went 10 of 41 against Illinois in the Big Ten tournament and won. So, yes, they're going to need to make a certain number of shots. To me, Vagabond, my issue would be is if Nick Boyd and John Blackwell start kicking the ball all over the place. I think if they take care of the ball, they don't even need to shoot all that well from 3 to win. High Point's very small. Nolan Winter should be able to do some things underneath. Wisconsin's going to have some size. And I think they'll just make enough shots on balance over the course of the game. If they don't kick the ball around like they did against James Madison when Chucky Hepburn had the worst game. Because this is a team that wants to blitz you and play defense at a high level. And if Boyd and Blackwell don't carry their water as distributors and point guards, that to me is where the issue would start. I think the shooting is, they could shoot badly and still win. And if they shoot really well, I think they'll win regardless. But it's the turnovers and it's the protecting the ball. That's what matters to me. Let's go to line number 2. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Evening, Grant. This would be Tim from Sparta.
I could recognize a little blurb that your phone made, Tim. What's going on?
I just had to call in and give you a golf class congratulations on your opening rant. I thought it was one of your better ones. It puts you diametrically opposed to, I would say, probably 90% of the Badger fans that there are. Because all I've heard all day is bitching and moaning about, they screwed us with the pick again. It's just, come on, people.
Yeah.
Who do you think you're Wisconsin? You're not Duke. You're not Kentucky. You're not Kansas. Give me a break.
They're a 5. Here's the thing. Unless you're a 1 or a 2 seed, Tim, and I'm not yelling at you, Tim, I'm just talking in general. Unless you are one of the best half dozen teams in college basketball, you're going to have to play a really good team on the first weekend at some point. Now, ideally, it's not BYU at altitude. I agree that's tough. And ideally, it's not, James Madison in the first round, who's probably underseeded because of the size of their school and the conference they play. Sure, those things can happen. But let's not act like you are owed 2 tomato can teams on the first weekend, unless, again, you're a 1 or a 2 seed. Like, that's just not how you're a 5 seed. And if Wisconsin wins, and if all the high seeds prevail, they will be playing the 4, and they'll have to pull an upset in their second game. That's quite literally how the structure of this tournament works.
Well, you don't want to use logic here too much.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting beyond some people's grasp here who just believe that no matter where Wisconsin ends up, unless they're a 1 seed or a 2 seed because of what they've done, and they're getting screwed.
Yeah.
So all I have to say is I wish them well. I hope that they win. if they lose to this first team, it will be a terrible embarrassment. Simply because you're like playing a really college team here. Although with Vagabond's information, are you really playing a college team at all?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Tim. Your phone is just so great. It's really tough for me to make out what you're saying, but I got enough of it there. So next time we call, I don't know if you got to hold your phone close to your mouth or what. It's just really tough for me to make out what you're saying. If they lose to High Point, it's a disaster, and we'll criticize them. And there's a world in which they could lose to Arkansas, and even though Arkansas would be a 4, depending on how the game goes, it would be a disappointment or a failure, and then we'll react to that. But I'm not going to do it ahead of time. I'm not going to take the last 8, 9, 10 years of baggage and throw it on this team before they've had a chance to play a tournament game. But just to explain the facts to Badgers fans, unless you're a 1, a 2, or a 3, unless you are one of the half dozen or 10 best teams in college basketball, you're going to have to play a good team on the opening weekend. You're going to have to beat them if you want to make a Sweet 16. This tournament doesn't line up for you unless you are an elite seed, and the Badgers aren't. Now, 5 seed's pretty good. Again, I think this last week was an overwhelming success, especially without Nolan Winter, which we should probably talk like, man, why do they look so friggin' good without Nolan Winter? I'm not saying they're better without Nolan Winter, but we got to talk about why that is, because I was just floored by this last week. I know the Washington game got a little close. That happens sometimes, even with great teams. The fact that they came up the next game and followed it up against Illinois, I don't care about the Washington game because they came back and beat Illinois for the second time this year. In a game they didn't even shoot all that well from 3. They shot like 25%. Wisco Sports Show, who's this?
Grant, great opening rant. Rant Bills is back. Good to hear. The seeding crap and wherever you play, that is crap. I mean, we have to go back 3-4 years to when they, were in Milwaukee and choked against Iowa State as a 3 seed with Johnny Davis.
Yep, that's right. I couldn't remember which team. I remember that was the year they beat Colgate, I think, right? And then they lost to Iowa State in the second game.
Max Klesmit's Colgate, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. It's very frustrating to me when people complain about the draw and ignore the fact that they've had good draws as well, and they haven't done anything with them. And they've had, and the James Madison, I just don't like when we remove agency from the players and the coaches. They played horrible against James Madison. They came into that game, they were sleepwalking, they weren't ready to go. That's not the fault of the draw. They didn't play well.
That was on Tyler Wall, that game. Horrible.
Yeah, I like that. And Chucky Hepburn, but Tyler Wall as well, yes.
Yeah, any Tyler Wall slander we can have is always good. And going back to that Iowa State game, Johnny Davis, 4 for 16.
Yeah, not great. That year was probably he was probably due for a stinker. I don't think that team was maybe as good as we thought. And Johnny Davis probably wasn't as good as he appeared to be for long stretches. And far be it for me to criticize Johnny Davis, one of my favorite players. That team felt maybe a little bit like a paper tiger, or maybe their seed was a little overinflated. We got to stop blaming the draw in the seed. It's March Madness, guys. Go take care of business. Go win. The 2 Final Four teams went and took care of it. You showed up in those games and you did what needed to be done. I think the story of the last 10 years for Badgers basketball, there's some tough draws, but there's also lots of opportunities where they could have won another game or two, and they just didn't.
Yeah, and I think actually having this game in Portland is helpful because Austin Rapp, a little homecoming for him.
Yeah.
And we saw against Michigan what happens when he gets going. We've seen it a few times this year, but most recently Michigan. I mean, he can be an X factor.
I think it's been really fun to watch Rapp, and you're going to hear my conversation with Jesse Temple, who will be here in the second hour, talking about how Rapp has gone from injured, he was sick, he was a bench player, he was a starter. I just think all of the ups and downs and some of the different experiences this year, and Bielauskas playing for a week or two without Nolan Winter and getting some good run. I think there's some bench players or some borderline starters, depending on the night, who have gotten a good share of different experiences this year, which probably positions them well and makes me have a little bit more faith in them going into March Madness.
Yeah. Are you at all concerned with Jack Janicki coming back and what his role is going to be? I think, Carrington obviously ate up a lot of his minutes. I don't see that really changing. I think it's on Janicki to earn some minutes here.
I don't think there's any reason to shoehorn Janicki in there or rush him back. What have you thought of Hayden Jones? I mean, I know he hasn't played a ton, but he's just popped in there. I mean, look, if Janicki plays, that's all it is. It's 5 to 10 minutes, defensive replacement if someone's in foul trouble. And if you can hit a 3 or 2, like, that's great, man. But that's really all they've used Hayden Jones for in these last couple of games. And that would be essentially the Jack Janicki role if he comes back, but they have no reason to rush him. His injury a little bit more significant than Nolan Winters was.
Yeah, wrist injury. Was he jacking his own Janicki?
He might. It was from all of the yeah. Thank you, Cohen. Perfect way to end that call. Have a good night. He might have been, or maybe that's a good rehab activity to get wrist strength back. I don't know. I'm good, man. I tell you what, I don't just take calls so people can compliment my takes. I've had enough. I've had enough of people complaining about the draw and how the committee doesn't like Wisconsin. Go win a couple basketball games. Okay. BYU was a tough draw last year. There's plenty of other instances where they got boned. Well, no one talks about when they blew it in Milwaukee to Iowa State, or Colgate or whoever. Like, I'm just kind of over it. Jesse Temple will be here in 1 hour to talk about this. A couple of, you want to do Brewers or Packers when we come back? I'll decide over the break. Give me a couple minutes to stew and I'll figure it out.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
What's your thoughts on High Point University? It's in North Carolina, by the way. I had to look it up.
Can I just, I'm getting a little sick every year of Wisconsin got a bad draw. The committee hates Wisconsin.
Same.
Some draws are good. Some are bad, but didn't they lose a game in Milwaukee when they had Johnny Davis? Also, go beat the ever-living piss out of High Point then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they will.
They let James Madison come in and big time them. Like, yeah, if they show up and do that against High Point, then sure, they could lose to anybody because it's March Madness. But, like, I'm just so over the complaining about the committee.
Dude, and the only High Point that good is High Point Steakhouse in Ridgeway, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
That's the only place. That's the place if you want to experience a good High Point.
Mm-hmm. Hard-hitting analysis from Ebo and I this morning. I just went cutting back that sound. That's my overlying Badgers basketball March Madness take of the day. I am sick of hearing about the committee. Go beat High Point. They should smoke this team. High Point should be drawing dead. One text here over the break, and I want to talk NFL. Big trade today. I think it impacts the Packers. Johnny Cribbage says, UW Hoops advantage. Age. We start 24-year-olds. Hell, Bielauskas is a 20-year-old freshman, so that is true. They are old. Greg Gard has said before, Jesse Temple, who will join us next hour, has talked about this many times. He often says this. You got to get old, and you got to stay old. And you want to develop some younger players and have them on your roster, sure. But last year, Tanjay was old. Crowell was old. McGee was coming off the bench. Klesmit, those guys were old. I remember being at Wisconsin, Illinois, the one at the Kohl's Center. It was a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and they just beat the brakes off of Illinois. Illinois had a bunch of guys who were sick, and Brad Underwood at the postgame presser was like, well, they're old. They're adults. And he wasn't really excuse-making. He was explaining. Maybe came off a little bit as excuse-making, but it wasn't. It's just true. It's how the Badgers are built. So you are correct, Johnny Cribbage. Appreciate the text. We'll get back to the Badgers at 5 o'clock. Big trade in the NFL today. The Broncos acquired Jalen Waddle, which is not the craziest headline I've ever seen. The compensation was a little bit crazier than I thought. Denver gets Jalen Waddle and the Dolphins' 4th-round pick in this year's draft. Miami, in return for sending Jalen Waddle out, gets a 1st-rounder this year and a 3rd and a 4th. A 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th for Jalen Waddle. Now, not that I want to stretch this out into a topic because it doesn't impact us, but if I was a team trying to acquire A.J. Brown, I'd go, crap. I don't know what Jalen Brown is. I don't know what A.J. Brown is worth relative to Jalen Waddle, but they're similar or A.J. Brown is better. So the asking price for A.J. Brown has to start there. Jalen Waddle went for a 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th. So that's where it starts because that's how it works. Now, the Eagles are probably under a little bit more pressure to trade Jalen Waddle. I don't think the Dolphins are looking to have a fire sale. I think they're like, well, sure, we'll listen to a call on Jalen Waddle. What do you want to give us? What about a 1st, and that's it? I mean, we'll just keep him. We like the player. We like our quarterback. We don't want to trade everyone away. Well, what about a 1st and a 3rd? And F it, a 4th. Jeez, okay. I mean, geez, if you want to give us all that, yeah, sure. We like Jalen Waddle, but yeah, take him for that. Like that's a price that they needed to pry Jalen Waddle out of Miami. I don't know if a team is going to have to pry A.J. Brown out of Philly because I think that situation is untenable. I think they want to get rid of him, and I think A.J. Brown wants to go. But the Eagles can't act like they want to get rid of him, and it's untenable because then they have no leverage. So the A.J. Brown component of the story is interesting, but set that to the side. The remaining Miami Dolphins depth chart: quarterback Malik Willis, running back Devon Achane, Starting wide receivers on this day, and it's early, there hasn't been a draft. There can still be trades that are made. But right now, on March 17th, Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert, and Tutu Atwell. Not ideal. Their starting tight end is Greg Dulcich. Their backup is Ben Sims, who I'd like back on the Packers, actually. I would like him in the Packers tight end room again. Their left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle goes Patrick Paul, Jonah Savanaia, or something like that. Aaron Brewer, Jamari Saylor, and Austin Jackson. If I was trying to ask little of Malik Willis, if I was trying to make his life very easy, if I was trying to have Malik Willis come in and play the type of football he played in Green Bay, that's not the offense I would build. It would seem that the Dolphins on some level are okay, maybe not even being all that good this year. They didn't pay Malik Willis a bajillion dollars. They gave him a nice contract, and certainly for the amount of snaps that he played, it's a good contract. But it's not a contract that prohibits them from drafting another quarterback this year or next year or signing or trading for another quarterback. Probably not this year, but next year, sure, they could move on from Malik Willis after this year. I don't think the Dolphins, John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley, are obsessed and cocksure on building around Malik Willis. I think they brought him in to add a pro into that room and to have a mature leader guy that they can start year one. And if he's a superstar, awesome. Otherwise, we can replace him and the money's not terrible. Remember, too, his money is still on the books. The Packers were connected on some level to Devon Achane last year. I was recording with our friends Bart Winkler and Paul Immig earlier today. And we were talking about this. I believe Paul's prompt, he's the question master on our podcast, on Bart's podcast, Into the Winklerverse, which is every Tuesday. It's on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Paul asked the questions, and the question was, Malik Willis is being set up to fail, yes or no? And we kicked around and we talked about that. And Paul asked, it's like, well, if you're going to trade Jalen Waddle, and I think they traded or they lost Bradley Chubb or there was another player, why would they not then trade Devon Achane? And my retort to that was, well, they didn't give away Waddle for nothing. I don't think they were actively shopping Waddle. Maybe they were, but that price that the Broncos paid to go get him is exorbitant. They paid for Waddle and then paid an extra tax to pry him out of there. Like they had to spend to get him out of Miami. So I don't think Miami is looking, all right, who else? Sell. I think they are content with any player on their roster unless a team comes calling and really wants to pay up. I wonder if the Packers would have any interest in Devon Achane. He's making about $5 or $6 million this year, and then his money is off the books. I don't know what it would cost to get him. Would you give up a third rounder? I saw Bukowski an hour ago say, if the Packers did a Reed for Achane swap, what pick would Green Bay have to attach to make it fair? Both guys are in the last year of their deals. I don't know that I don't know that the Packers would have to attach a pick to that. I don't know. I don't feel as though Jaden Reed for Devon Achane is unfair one way or the other. I think I would trade Jaden Reed for Devon Achane. Now, I would like to know how truly invested and how much the Packers believe in Savion Williams. I hope a good amount because they drafted him in the third round after spending a pick in the first round on a wide receiver. So I hope the Packers believe in Savion Williams, and I hope they know some things that we don't. And I hope that, they're ready to make him a part of the offense. But I don't think Jaden Reed in the last year of his deal for Devon Achane in the last year of his deal is that unfair for either team. In fact, if I was Miami, I'd rather have Jaden Reed. And I don't know that the Packers would rather have Devon Achane, but they could certainly use a solid number 2 running back more than they could use a number 2 wide receiver. And I don't even think Jaden Reed's the number 2 receiver on this team. I think he's number 3 behind Christian Watson and Matthew Golden. I don't like trading away depth as Romeo Doubs is leaving the building and as Dontavian Wicks hasn't been able to stay healthy. But the wide receiver room right now would be Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, and I would put Sky Moore on the team, and Savion Williams would be the other. So 6 wide receivers. That's pretty straightforward to me. Again, I don't know how much faith. I asked Mike Renner at the Combine, do you believe in Savion Williams? What do you think about that player? And he's like, no. So the Packers must feel differently because they drafted him in the third round. I don't think Jaden Reed is anything special. I think he's fine. But Miami could use a fine wide receiver. And the Packers could use a running back who's not a complete and total, whatever Marshawn Lloyd is, just a missing man. I'd be interested. Or would the Dolphins take a third-round pick with the Packers? They don't have a first-round pick this year next. You want to be careful about trading away too many picks. Jaden Reed for Devon Achane interests me, and they just did something similar with Colby Wooden for Zaire Franklin. Little different, but player for player. That's just a player for player trade. I wonder if the Packers would consider it, because I don't think they're gonna extend Jaden Reed. I don't think he's in their plans. I think that's signaled by the drafting of Savion Williams, and watch them draft another wide receiver in this upcoming draft. We'll see. Jaden Reed for Devon Achane. Peter Bukowski, you son of a gun. I might kind of like it. But I'm the one who once said that we should trade Freddie Peralta for Nolan Arenado. So what the hell do I know? The show tonight is presented by Road America. Go online, roadamerica.com, and you can look forward to all of the great events that are on the calendar. It'd probably feel nice to go and look forward at May, June, July, given the fact that we just got a bunch of snow. So daydream just a little bit about the weeks and the months to come. This snow will be gone before you know it. It's going to be nice. And before too long, we'll be over at Road America for the vintage car, for IMSA, for the Indy car, or something more low-key, a sunset cruise, something a little, maybe you just want to go over there and camp and get away for the weekend. They're camping. Everyone I talk to is like, it's top-notch. They do a great job. So roadamerica.com, it's America's National Park of Speed, proud sponsor of the show. Happy to represent them, roadamerica.com. Get your passes, get your tickets, and at the very least, make your plan for the summer so you know when you're going to head over there.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, a couple minutes before 5 o'clock. We'll get an update from Zach Heilprin, our sports director, who's headed out to Portland, as is Jesse Temple, who will be here at 5:35, a day earlier this week because he's traveling tomorrow to make sure he's there to cover the game on Thursday. A quick Brewers thought before we go. Talked about this a little bit. Chuck Freeman was on Bill's show earlier today. That's hour number 3, Locked On Brewers, if you want to go find that. I love how because I'm the last show on our network for the day, and I listen to Evo's show, and then I produce Bill's. Like, we're regurgitating, we're hitting topics, and we're hitting names and things that were already discussed. So I'm just referring you. This guest was great earlier. Bill did a segment on this. Go listen to it. So we talked about Brandon Lockridge, who had a grand slam yesterday. They had a 12-run inning. Brandon Lockridge is out of his mind this spring. He's got 31 at-bats in 11 games, 10 hits, 12 runs scored, a double, 4 home runs, 7 RBIs, 6 walks, 8 strikeouts. Not too bad. Another outfielder who I think is very much in question for the opening day roster is Garrett Mitchell. Now, Garrett Mitchell this spring, 21 at-bats in 8 games. He has scored 3 runs. He has 2 hits, 1 double, 1 home run, 4 RBIs, 4 walks, and 12 strikeouts. That's 12 strikeouts in 21 at-bats. I think right now one of the most interesting roster conversations or positional battles is Garrett Mitchell versus Brandon Lockridge. Hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby, basically. 2026. I don't need Garrett Mitchell on my opening day roster right now. I mean, I'd take Lockridge. Garrett Mitchell has options remaining. And folks, I'm also unsure that if Garrett Mitchell was healthy for any stretch over the last couple of years, the Brewers would have maybe traded him like they did to Joey Wiemer. Like, I don't know that the Brewers, especially Murph, I don't know that he ever really loved Joey Wiemer that much. I don't think Pat Murphy really likes Garrett Mitchell all that much. I think he loves Brandon Lockridge. Just talking to people around the team. Now, you really want an insane take. I see Tyler in Massachusetts on the live stream. Oh, these are recycled takes. Well, a lot of the topics are recycled. I hope that I'm giving you a slightly different perspective than maybe Bill or Ebo. You want a spicy, insane, raging, flaming take? We've seen Garrett Mitchell take his last major league at bat for the Milwaukee Brewers organization. How's that for a take? Because at this rate, I wouldn't break camp with him on the active roster. And I don't know if he can stay healthy long enough to earn a spot to come back up. And I don't know that the Brewers like him that much. So if he has a couple good weeks in the minors, I'm trading him. I think Brandon Lockridge is the better option right now. He plays baseball. He's healthy. So he has that going for him. And I know Murph really likes him. And I think Murph has a lot of pull. Not just over the roster, but, I think the 26 and the guys that are on his roster come opening day, I think he's got a lot to say. Guys will get hurt and there'll be opportunities, but it's ridiculous to say, well, Garrett Mitchell will have an opportunity. Guys will get hurt. No, he is the guy who gets hurt. He is the one who knocks. Garrett Mitchell is the guy who gets hurt, opening the opportunity for someone else. So in an effort to be bolder with my takes, Garrett Mitchell taking his last major league at bat in the Brewers organization. There, let me just take this take to its fullest extent, all the way. A couple minutes on the Brewers. I want to reset after 5 o'clock with some Badgers basketball talk. Why have they looked so good with Nolan Winter? I want to parse that out. And if you have any thoughts on the trade of Jalen Waddle and what's going on with the Brewers in spring training, World Baseball Classic tonight, too. It's all on the table. Your calls coming up next, 608-321-1670 as we begin hour 2.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Wisconsin's headed to Portland today. It's where they're going to take on 12-seeded High Point on Thursday in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They will potentially be getting some reinforcements in the form of Nolan Winter and Jack Janicki. Winter has missed the last 4 games with an injured ankle. Janicki has missed the last month after breaking his wrist. But Coach Greg Gard gave an encouraging update when he spoke with reporters yesterday.
Both of them were in, full go mode other than contact stuff. Major contact stuff. So the most any of them have done. They both ran full court in some skeleton stuff we did. Both were in the drills. So yeah, it was a big jump today. So everybody felt pretty good coming out of it. So the plan is to take it another step tomorrow.
Winter, Wisconsin's third leading scorer and leading rebounder, though the Badgers got some big efforts from Alexis Bieliauskas and Austin Rapp in his absence last week at the Big Ten tournament. If he's not fully good, Wisconsin should be able to play well without him. Again, it'll be Wisconsin and High Point on Thursday. Tip set for 12:50. Turning to the Bucks, they are back in action tonight as they welcome Cleveland to Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee looking for a second straight win. Tip is set for 7.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Well, the Wisconsin football team going to get spring practice started Thursday. Badgers will be introducing close to 50 new players since the last time they played a game in November. It includes new starting quarterback Colton Joseph. He was the Sun Belt Player of the Year for Old Dominion last year. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
But just so impressed by what Wisconsin was able to do. And if you're a fan or maybe even a media member, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that Wisconsin didn't have to play on a Sunday. But as Greg Gard would say, if there's going to be a championship or if there's going to be something on the line, you want to be competitive and try and win it. But at this stage of the season, I just think rest and recovery matters so much. And Wisconsin is in the dance and has a great opportunity. The Big Ten tournament was further proof, I think, of what could be possible.
And then they go and beat Illinois the way they did and came so close to beating Michigan. I have zero problem with them losing that game and getting to come home one day early. And because we've seen what has happened the last 2 years where you're playing into Sunday. And I don't know if it affected them. I mean, I think it did. I think Greg Gard admitted it a little bit. Was it yesterday or maybe the day before? That is something that can impact you for sure.
We've had to work for months to get to this point. It doesn't just happen here in March. This journey started a long, long time ago. We have to continue to get better and continue to be the best version of ourselves as we go forward into Thursday.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2. Special programming change tonight. Jesse Temple's going to be here at 5:35 because tomorrow, when he normally appears on the show, he'll be traveling out to Portland to cover Wisconsin versus High Point on Thursday. So he'll be here in about a half hour. Until then, we can talk about a couple different things. Now, I have another Badgers basketball take. I can lead off this hour, but if you'd like to join, 608-321-1670. I think it's interesting that the Dolphins traded Jalen Waddle today. They traded him for a really steep price. They didn't just sell him off. I don't think the Dolphins are looking to have a fire sale and tank. I think the Broncos really wanted Jalen Waddle, and they paid a steep price to pry him away. And good for the Dolphins. I think that's smart business. I wonder if the Packers have any interest in Devon Achane, and I wonder what it would cost. I saw Bukowski posit, well, what about Jaden Reed for Achane and maybe some picks to get it done? I mean, if I was the Dolphins, I'd shoot Jaden Reed for Devon Achane. Maybe it would take a pick. Maybe that's a player that the Dolphins, if the Dolphins really like him, if John Eric Sullivan really likes him, if Jeff Hafley really likes him, that's a piece that could be a part of their core moving forward as they rebuild. Maybe. Or maybe they don't like him at all and they're not interested. And maybe the Packers don't want to make a trade and maybe they're fine with their running back room now. I wouldn't be, but they also still have to draft. So they could add in the draft. We'll see. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in Brewer spring training. The difference between Garrett Mitchell and Brandon Lockridge is outstanding. I mean, it jumps off the page. Garrett Mitchell's having a miserable spring. In 21 at-bats, he has 12 strikeouts. And he has 1 home run, but that's not enough to, you know what I mean? If he had 6 strikeouts or 6 home runs and a bunch of strikeouts, well, that would be different. So I would roster somebody other than Garrett Mitchell at the start of the regular season. Garrett Mitchell has options, I believe. I'll be a little spicy. I'll step out a little farther and say I wouldn't be shocked if we've seen Garrett Mitchell's last at bat for the Brewers on a major league level. If he doesn't break camp with the team, when's he coming up? Well, someone will get hurt. Yeah, that someone will be Garrett Mitchell. That's the thing. Garrett Mitchell is the guy who gets hurt to open the door for somebody else. People don't get hurt to open the door for Garrett Mitchell. It's the other way around. So if you have a Brewers thought, if you have a Packers thought, Otherwise, I'll get right back into the Badgers. I am surprised that they have fared so well without Nolan Winter. Going to Mackey to beat Purdue, and that was not something that floored me. I remember on Friday before that weekend, I said, why is everyone so freaking scared of Purdue? Wisconsin could beat Purdue even without Nolan Winter. Now, they had to make some great shots. They had to play basically a flawless game and execute in crunch time and fend off multiple Purdue runs. It was a great game, but they were able to do that without Nolan Winter. They beat Washington, which is they should have. And then they beat Illinois in overtime. And if they had been blown out by Michigan and they lost by 15, by 20, by 25, they could have won that game. Maybe should have won that game. They didn't shoot amazing in that game. They didn't shoot poorly. They hit 16 threes, but they only took 30. I mean, that's not a great, they weren't just throwing threes out of their ass the entire game. They were measured by their standards. They easily could have won that Michigan game without Nolan Winter. And I just wonder if there's a lesson there, if there's something to be learned as to why a team can beat Purdue on the road, Illinois on a neutral, and then one of the best teams in the country play them one possession on a neutral. I'm just not unconvinced that more volume for John Blackwell and more volume for Nick Boyd is not what's best. Now, High Point's interesting because they're a smaller team, and maybe Nolan Winter. Here's the thing. I think Nolan Winter is a very solid player. I think he's very good. And I have very, very few qualms about him as a player. I think he's progressed physically very well, maybe even better than I thought. I've told you this before. The skill hasn't always been where I thought it would be. I remember watching him as a freshman early on, covering some games down at the Kohl Center. I remember sitting next to Nick Osen in the press area and talking to him about this. Like, this is a guy with an NBA skill set, the shooting and the touch. The shooting and the touch have never really been there on the level that I hoped. I always thought the path for him would be dead-eye sharpshooter, 40% three-point shooter, really good at the free throw line, and then also can make some plays underneath, and maybe he gets pushed around a little bit. I think physically he's progressed really well. The skill hasn't always been there. What I haven't seen from Nolan Winter, and maybe my eye isn't trained well enough. Maybe it's been there and I just haven't seen it. I have not watched a Badger game and come away thinking, oh my God, Nolan Winter, the man that you are. I've thought that about Boyd. I've thought that about Blackwell. And admittedly, those two players are better than Nolan Winter. Yeah. I think Nolan Winter is a guy who's going to collect a double-double over the regular flow of a game, but I don't feel like he's a player where I walk away from a game thinking he went and got them that game. He'll make lots of good plays. He'll make winning plays. But I think moving forward, maybe this last week has taught us a little something about, like, maybe Nick Boyd and John Blackwell could use a little bit more volume because those two guys are nuts. And maybe just the best backcourt in the country. 608-321-1670. Let's take a call. Let's go Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Jeremy. How you been?
Doing well. Other than that, there's a lot of snow outside.
It'll melt. Now that the roads are clear off, I flew back in from Denver yesterday, a day late because of the weather. And as we're flying over the cities, I flew into MSP, and I'm looking down, I'm like, oh, the freeways are clear. The side streets are messy, and there's snow everywhere. But as long as we can get around, it'll melt soon. I'm over it.
Yeah. No, I drove back from Chautauqua the next day, Sunday afternoon.
Boy.
Yeah, freeways were clear. I was fine. But I just wanted to add in the Garrett Mitchell take. In my opinion, that wasn't even really a hot take. I mean, I think everybody can agree with you that Lockridge is head and shoulders above Garrett Mitchell. I'll go even one further. I'm more impressed after last night's game, that devastation that took place against the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more impressed with almost all the rookies that played last night than I am with Garrett Mitchell.
I just think Garrett Mitchell has holes in his game. There's certain parts of the strike zone that he cannot get to. Pitchers know it, and it's not something that he's been able to correct. And he strikes out a ton. Now, he's got power, but again, you can be a guy that strikes out a lot if you hit a lot of home runs and you see it in moments, but you don't see it consistently enough for that to be a player.
Well, and the thing is correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't Garrett Mitchell the guy? Wasn't he part of that Corbin Burns deal? Wasn't he?
No, that was Joey Ortiz. They drafted Garrett Mitchell.
Oh, they drafted him.
I think he was a
right.
first-round pick, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah. But yeah, he's been, I mean, since day one. I mean, I think wasn't it like the very first game or the very first few games he played for us, he was hurt.
I think he played. I think he came in. I mean, we're trying to remember this on the air. I think he was a late year call up and had a couple nice moments and then got hurt. And then at the beginning of the next year, I think he got hurt and missed most of the year, had a chance to come back and didn't.
Yeah.
And then last year he was hurt for most of the year again, after coming in late.
Correct. Yep. That's correct. Okay. Now you're jogging my memory.
I think I'm probably missing a year in there, but that's generally speaking kind of the shape of it.
Yeah, and that's the thing of it. And I mean, baseball with a 162 game season, when you're not healthy, you know, when you're injured way more than you're not, that's usually like, I can't understand how he's still. I don't know if the Brewers were just because he was such a high pick. I think that's probably why he's still on the roster. It's just because they're like they tried to want to make that work.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't just.
And there's good reason. I mean, he's cheap. The other thing is like, what are you going to do with him? Unless you're just going to cut him loose. Like,
and he's good in the field when he's healthy too. You know, there is that. I mean, he plays well. You know, but other than that,
they don't have bad outfielders on the team though. That's the thing. No. Like you are not earning major league starts in the Brewers org because you're a good defender in the outfield. All of their players are good defenders in the outfield.
Oh yeah, and last year we were so deep at outfield too. That's the other thing. I mean, we had like 6 of them. Like, you know, I mean, we were trying to decide who was going to get time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I think Pat Murphy just loves Blake Perkins so much. Churio's going to play every day, and Yelich can play. Yep. Isaac Collins was great. Now he's gone. So I don't think they're stupid deep in the outfield. I think there are opportunities. I just don't think enough of Garrett Mitchell.
Right. Yeah. Currently, right now, they're not. It was like last season or season before. There was quite a few guys, but I mean, with Yelich being out and things like that, that was a necessity. And now with Yelich, I think there's going to come a time where Yelich is probably going to be spending more time just at the plate than he is out in the outfield. So I mean, having a guy extra would be great. But
look, I think they need outfield depth. I appreciate it, Jeremy. Their outfield is not deep. Their infield is deeper. I guess their outfield is not. I don't think they're loaded. I just don't think Garrett Mitchell is great. And I don't think he can stay healthy. And I don't really think he's one of Murph's guys. I think Lockridge is. Perkins definitely is. And again, he's a good defender, but they're all good defenders. Oh, well, Garrett Mitchell's so good at defense. Well, Blake Perkins is too. And he can stay healthy and swing a bat a little bit. You know, same with Churio. Churio's a good defender, and he's a superstar. Or trending towards being a superstar, whatever. I don't want to argue about semantics. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen Garrett Mitchell take his last major league at bat in the Brewers org. That's my spicy take. My takeaway at this hour is Brandon Lockridge and Garrett Mitchell is my most interesting, point of competition in camp. The sports radio really spicy extreme of that take is Garrett Mitchell has taken his last major league at bat in the Brewers org. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Well, things ain't always what they seem, so wake up, Grant. It's Mad Max from the tunnels of Racine.
Mad Max in the tunnels. I thought of you yesterday. Do you want to know why?
Yeah, because you're at the Denver airport, right?
I was at the Denver airport, and I was in Terminal C, and you take the train there, and you get out of the train, and you look up, and the walls are stone, and there's like fake moss, and there's an airport. You feel like you're at Camp Snoopy. There's some weird, the big white roof, the blue statue, the horse statue with the red eyes when you roll in. I'm like, yeah, this is Mad Max territory. In fact, there's probably some access point connecting Racine and the Denver airport through tunnels.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I didn't hear from you most of the day yesterday, so I was worried you might have taken a wrong turn and gotten lost in the tunnels and been captured by the cabal. So I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
Unless it's not really you, unless they sent back a clone of Grant.
They're probably making clones in that airport. Dude, that place is huge. Huge. There's things going on underground in the tunnels. There's a bunch of like construction that never turned into anything. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, Mad Max. That one I fully and wholly believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I was explaining to Ebo in the morning crowd yesterday how that freak winter storm was a result of the cloud seeding and weather modification done in the Foxconn Dome underneath the Racine tunnels. So the weather machine was working overtime last week to keep you trapped in Denver.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate that. It was the same back in August. I get to the counter at the airport and they're like, oh, your flight's been moved to tomorrow. Now this weekend I got it because we get 2 feet of snow. This is just poor Evo had to run the board for Bill's show yesterday because Kate, God only knows what she was up to. She was my backup plan. I'm a good employee. I made a backup plan, but of course Kate had, something come up, whatever. That's just Kate. It's fine. Anyways, not to complain about my travel. We all got problems.
Yeah, just to kind of build on what you said about Garrett Mitchell, I think the only reason people are talking about him and expecting something out of him just because of that one moment he had in the playoffs. And I'm glad we had that moment with him, just a big go-ahead home run in the playoffs. But I think that's clouding people's judgment of him, and when people still hear him, it's like, oh, he's a name. He did something good one time.
Yeah, and he's good looking. He's a first-round pick. Can they clone Garrett Mitchell with stronger ligaments and bones and such? Can you talk to some people in Racine about maybe making that happen?
I don't know. We'll see how the Yelich one turns out this year. If his back holds up, I think we're onto something with the cloning technology.
I suppose they can only do one at once. And it was award show season. It still is. So they were probably working overtime. Now they maybe have some more time to work on some athletes.
Yeah.
Did you have takeaways from the Oscars?
No, I didn't watch it all. I was watching USA and in the DR. And speaking of that, I'm excited. I'm pumped up for tonight. I mean, I've had a great time watching the Classic. It's been great for baseball. And I'm going to be in my local Irish pub celebrating St. Patrick's Day, the same one that you and I hung out with Coach Fried at that one time. So
yes,
as you know, I'm going to have to get there early to get a good spot because, as you know, the sight lines aren't great if you're trying to watch a game.
Yeah, I do like that place. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day, Matt. I'm glad that you're able to enjoy a place like that and get away from the tunnels for a little while.
Yeah, and I gave up alcohol for Lent. It's been a month since I've had a drink, but St. Patrick's Day, I usually make an exception. I'm about a third Irish, so I feel like I owe it to my ancestors to at least have one Guinness or Smittix.
I don't think you're going to go to hell for that, don't you?
I don't think so. There's probably plenty of other reasons I might go to hell, but I don't think it's that.
All right, okay, I can appreciate that. Mad Max and Racine. I love how I asked him, did you watch the Oscars? Because I figured he had some, Javier Bardem is a lizard person, and he's like, oh no, I was just watching the World Baseball Classic. I love how Mad Max can weave so perfectly between the most bat crap thing you've ever heard and also like, I think this is good for baseball. And I think Garrett Mitchell's that one moment one time, I think it has people, still holding on to that. God, good caller. Masterful. One more here. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Andy in Sun Prairie. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing great, Andy. What's up?
Hey, you were talking baseball, and so I want to slip this in. Do you have any idea what the deal is with televised Brewer games this year? My 80-year-old parents do not want to have to stream, and I can afford the $100, but it seems like they're holding off on announcing what cable channels stuff is going to be televised on so that they can get as many people to sign up for the streaming as possible. Yes. But, at the end of the day, if there's a channel where the great majority of those games are going to be on, ultimately, if that's MLB Network or something else, do you have any idea you know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
right?
I absolutely do, Andy. I'm going to let you go. I will give you this answer. Well, I'm just going to put you on hold. You can hang up if you're listening. Otherwise, I'll give you the answer like this because we did this on Bill's show. First of all, for those who are interested in this, Rick Schlesinger is coming on Bill's show tomorrow at 11:30, and we're going to grill him over this, or Bill is. So we'll get all of the information that we are allowed to have, I guess, as all the information that Rick is allowed to share with the masses tomorrow at 11:30. So mark that down or go back and find it in the podcast. What I have come to understand is that if your previous cable provider or television provider of any kind carried FanDuel Sports Network Channel Wisconsin, this new iteration will be there in that spot. It'll be in the exact same spot. If you have some television provider that didn't have it originally, if you have Hulu or YouTube TV, the regional sports networks aren't on those. Don't expect the Brewers to all of a sudden appear on there. I think now DirecTV Stream, or if you have Spectrum or whatever, the next time the Brewers are broadcast on TV, you should be able to turn it on, go to your guide, and scroll to the same place where the old Brewers channel was, and it should be right there. I don't know that to a certainty because the Brewers haven't really told us much. And Andy, I think you're right. I think what's probably happening is the Brewers want as many people to sign up for their service as possible. So if they can hold out details for a week or so, and people go, screw it, I'll just get the other thing and I'll cancel cable. All right. I get why they would do that, even though it's a little, you're taking advantage of folks a little bit. You're not breaking any laws. It is a little ridiculous that there's a game on TV now in less than a week. There's a game. It's not a real game, but there's a televised Brewers broadcast less than a week, and they still haven't put out this information. So I don't have anything for you, Andy. That's my understanding of it. Rick Schlesinger tomorrow at 11:30, so hopefully we'll get some better stuff from Rick, at least than I can give you. Jesse Temple's going to be here at 5:30. One more segment in the meantime coming up next. Maybe some extended Brewers thoughts and other Badgers basketball take or two before we get to Jesse.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisconsin weather doesn't wait, and neither should you. At Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin, we make upgrading your home simple. Right now, order today and get 0% interest until 2032. You heard me right. 0% interest all the way until 2032. Upgrade your windows and doors now and pay over time without paying interest. With our 10-year limited warranty, you can feel confident in your investment. Schedule your free in-home consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Certain restrictions apply. 3/31/2026.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Who's a guy do you think that's benefited the most from participating? Like, who's risen their star power the most?
Yeah, Bryce Terang. Bryce Terang is with the Milwaukee Brewers. You know, Mark DeRosa can't speak enough high praise about this young man and his power and the ability to play the game. Look, there's tough decisions you could throw a lineup and put it in a hat, and you don't make wrong decisions with this roster. And I think that was some of the criticism last time, that there was some mistake in the lineup. There's no mistakes. Whoever you put in there is really, really good. But you have to go with the hot hand, and that's what Mark said he would do these last 2 games, is go with the hot hand.
So we have to look forward to tonight, the World Baseball Classic final. Bryce Trang in the lineup. We can look forward to watching him play. Jackson Churio playing for Venezuela. Or any others? I've been in and out. Guys, I was in Denver this weekend celebrating a buddy's birthday. We flew out there to surprise him. I had a bajillion beers. It's not that I was like Jim Leahy falling over, but it's just like you lose your tether to reality pretty quickly, especially when I know, like, I don't have to be on the air reacting to sports until Monday, what I thought, or until, Tuesday, what turned out to be Tuesday. I'll let it go just a little bit. So I did not watch Venezuela the other night. I watched Wisconsin. I watched the United States versus the Dominican Republic. I watched a little hockey this weekend. I watched the Wild and the Austin Matthews team, the Leafs. I watched Bruins Devils yesterday. Good game that went to overtime. But I've not been completely and totally locked in. I know the Brewers, a couple of them on Venezuela. Bryce Trang in the lineup tonight. I do wonder if Bryce Trang gets a little bit of a boost from this. I think if we talk about the Brewers' chances of winning the division this year, they're going to need a little bit more than they got last year from certain guys. They're going to need more from Contreras. I think they're going to need more consistency from Churio. And I think they're going to need another step from Bryce Trang, who's kind of just consistently taken a step year by year by year. To parrot or to pirate, I think both apply, a Bill Simmons take when you talk about a Team USA bump when NBA players go to play at the Olympics, young players, and they're around superstars and they get a chance to see how the greatest players in the country and in the world are doing it. I do wonder maybe can we get a little World Baseball Classic bump from Bryce Trang? A little bit more power, a little bit more production. I think the Brewers are going to need it this year. I think a big misnomer, or maybe not a misnomer, something that we don't often consider or something that we don't often fully grasp about last year's season is that the Cubs probably should have won the division. Brewers fans, try to bear with me. The Brewers won 97 games, deserved it. But the Cubs won, what did they win? 91, 92? If I was a Cubs fan, I would look at last season and say, well, the Cubs would have won if the Brewers didn't pull 2 12-game winning streaks out of their ass. Like, that was the difference. And the Brewers did that, and they deserve to win the division because of it. I would not count on the Brewers having more than one 10-plus game winning streak. Now, they also started really slow. They dug themselves into a hole, so you got to, you factor that in as well. I think the Brewers are going to need to be on balance a little bit better. They're not going to be able to start as slow because I don't think they can count on 2, 10, 11, 12-game winning streaks like they got last year. I just think, put it this way, say all that to say this. The Cubs were a lot closer and a lot better last year than most people think because the Brewers just went like a month without ever losing. The Cubs were closer, and they got better this offseason. They added Bregman. They added some pitching. And I think the Brewers are going to need to get better. I think Churio needs to be more consistent. Terang needs to continue to grow little by little as he's done. Contreras just needs to not have a broken hand. Whatever. We'll see. A couple of texts coming in here. Coyote Mike says, Grant, last year when Mitchell got hurt, I called in and said to you after that injury, Mitchell had played his last game for the Brewers, and it is looking like that I could have been right. I think your previous opinions about Lockridge and Mitchell were dead on. I'm being dramatic, certainly for the sake of a take. There's a pretty good chance that Garrett Mitchell breaks camp with the team or is on the team. But this has been a really bad spring training for Garrett Mitchell. And it's been bad in the ways that should concern you about the player. Because all of his weaknesses that he's been able to overcome have been laid bare in spring training. Like way too many strikeouts, can't catch up with high fastballs. Of course, his other biggest weakness has been he can't stay healthy. Now, he's been healthy. He's striking out a bunch. Jim in Cottage Grove says, wow, you're very good at your job. You're taking all of Bill's takes and entering your voice into their interviews. Same thing this morning, same thing right now. I'm just parroting takes. Sorry. Stealing. Grainman Mike says, Grant on the Badgers basketball team. The way Boyd and Blackwell have taken over games recently make me feel like they're not a live and die by the 3 team. I have great confidence in this team because they got deeper with the exit and the return of Winter. Don't be surprised if this is a Final Four team. Well, sure. They need to hit threes, but I think they shot less than 25% from 3 against Illinois, and they were able to win. Boyd and Blackwell can get to the rim. And knock on wood, they've made their free throws. So they don't need to be a chuck and duck team. Blackwell and Boyd playing at this level and playing with the volume that they've played with, it makes it a little bit more complex. They're going to have to make threes. And if they have a really terrible shooting night from 3, they could lose, of course. But I'm to the point with High Point where it's like Boyd and Blackwell should be able to win you this game just on their own. Now, as the tournament continues, no, you're going to have to make threes, of course. But I don't think they're simply, and I think Grainman Mike, this is what you're saying, they're not just 3-point merchants. I would agree with that take. I think that backcourt has solidified themselves, and you can kind of understand and expect what you're getting night in and night out. We'll take a break. Jesse Temple going to join us, Badger Connect, coming up next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
If you told me if Wisconsin ends up being a Final Four team, it wouldn't surprise me. Like Wisconsin kind of, this year reminds me of like of Michigan State Tom Izzo teams where you can just never quite, count them out. They're tough. They just find ways to win. And this one in particular, like Wally said, they beat Illinois twice, Purdue, Michigan State. They beat them all. Yep. So that's in you. Once you've done it, you believe in yourself. So the tournament is all about confidence and swag, and I think that Wisconsin has a lot of that people aren't quite taking note of.
Jesse, 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 Jesse.
Jesse Temple set to join us. That first piece of sound was Emeka Okafor on CBS, just talking about the Badgers and how with this backcourt, with this scoring, this is a team. I'm not surprised they'd be in the Final Four. And I don't disagree. The problem is, and why I laugh and why I smile, and Jesse and I are going to talk about this in just a minute, is we've said that about a bunch of Badgers teams, and it doesn't always come to pass. So without any further ado, here's our conversation from earlier today. Jesse Temple is here. He's at Badger Connect. You should subscribe to his content, all of his content. Mike Heller is on the team creating more content, so there's more than ever. He's also on the camp, of course, with our friend Zach Heilprin, our sports director. Jesse, let's start. If when Nolan Winter went down, you told Badgers fans they're going to pull an upset on the road at Purdue to close the regular season, and then they're going to win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, one against Illinois, and they're going to play Michigan to one possession. I think a lot of Badgers fans would have been maybe a little surprised, certainly very happy. I just kind of want to start by talking about how good they've looked or how they've made do without Nolan Winter over the last week or so.
Well, it speaks to the top-end talent that this team possesses. Now, as I've said on the swing, that is not the recipe for success in the NCAA tournament to continue to play without Nolan Winter. His rebounding and improvement is pretty significant here in his junior season. But when you have Nick Boyd and John Blackwell playing as well as they are, and you have Austin Rapp able to step into the starting role and shoot the way that he did against Michigan, it feels like anything is possible. Now, Rapp deserves a lot of credit. I wrote about him earlier this season. He starts the first 7 games. All of a sudden, he's out of the starting lineup. Alexis Bieliauskas takes his place. Austin isn't shooting particularly well. He needs to demonstrate an ability to be more consistent on the defensive end, and he didn't hang his head. He didn't pout. He continued to show up and improve and be a positive force for this team. So when he was asked to step into a starting role after the Nolan Winter injury, it wasn't that big of a deal. He'd been playing significant minutes. They've got so many shooters on the floor, but you can't find a Nolan Winter off the bench in every game. Like, you need a 7-footer who can help at the rim, who can stretch the floor, who can get those rebounds. And that's why having him in the NCAA tournament is going to be so valuable, especially against High Point, which is not a particularly big team.
And I think there were moments, like especially against Washington in the second half, when you need to secure a rebound. And you can look at moments down the stretch against Michigan. I think this team defends pretty well. This goes for everybody, so I realize what I'm about to say. I think this team can defend pretty well if they avoid fouling and they limit teams to one possession, right, when they can rebound. And I think the absence of Nolan Winter in moments have hurt them there. I do think maybe this is an interesting example, Jesse, for this team, where if there's a forward in foul trouble or there's someone injured, it's a pretty good luxury to have to just turn the knobs up on John Blackwell and Nick Boyd. Like, oh, we'll just do more of those guys. Like, those guys get more shots, more looks. And you see that, that didn't really hurt him. Like, Nick Boyd taking more shots didn't bring others on the team down. It didn't wreck the efficiency. Those two guys can just take more of the controls. That's a nice, second pitch, or that's a nice backup plan if it's needed, I guess.
It's why when I look at this NCAA tournament, I think it's understandable for fans to be disappointed if Wisconsin doesn't make it out of this first weekend. And I get that second round matchup, if the seeds hold and Arkansas beats Hawaii in the first round, would technically be an upset. And Arkansas, that might be first to 100. I've said the High Point game might be first to 90. Wisconsin's going to have to play extraordinarily well. But a backcourt duo like this, it doesn't come along every year. I know Wisconsin has been able to replicate its success through the portal. Now 3 straight years they've had portal success, which is pretty amazing. I know it's been a key storyline all season. But when you just have these guys go for 38 like Nick did and 31 like John did against Illinois, and it's the first time Wisconsin's had 2 players go for 30 plus in the same game since 1968, just feels like you ought to take advantage of that in the NCAA tournament. And obviously Wisconsin is going to attempt to do so, but they've got to capitalize on it. And yeah, they're going to lean pretty heavily on those 2 guys in the tournament, as they should.
And it was interesting. I saw a clip of Dusty May. I think it was on Get Up Barstool, talk about that backcourt and how they're just, I don't know that there's many teams in the country. There might not be another team in the country like that. And Jesse, I laughed when you started your statement there. And I think you were kind of smiling and laughing too, because it feels like we've said this before. Like, you have Johnny Davis, you have a chance. You have AJ Storr, you have John Tonje. So this does feel like another example. And there have been a bunch of them in the last decade where it's like, this is the reason this could be the team to make a run in March. You have no way of knowing, but it's a pretty easy pair of dots to connect, right? Incredible backcourt with those 2 guys. That should translate. You should hopefully be able to get some wins in the tournament just off of that.
I would think so. Nick Boyd has been so consistent throughout the season. You could just write it in pen, not even pencil. He's going to get double digits. He's averaging 20 plus points. He's going to finish the year with the most points per game by any Wisconsin player in 3+ decades. There hasn't been a 20 plus point scorer since Michael Finley 31 years ago. And John Blackwell has continued to elevate his play. They are true 3-level scorers. They can obviously shoot the 3. Blackwell's hit 6 threes in a game on multiple occasions. Nick has hit 5, but Nick continues to get downhill and just attack the rim, as does Blackwell. And that opens things up for everybody else. So yeah, I don't know if spoiled is the right word, because it's not like Wisconsin has been consistently getting to the Sweet 16 or the Final Four, but they have pretty consistently made the NCAA tournament. But it's one thing to make that first weekend, and it's another thing to get to that second weekend. And it's been 9 years now since Wisconsin was able to do that under Greg Gard. And so I don't want to say that you don't know when your next opportunity is going to come, because the way Wisconsin has been able to reload each year, it feels like it should happen every year, but it's not a guarantee. So when you get here, you want to take advantage of it.
Jesse Temple is here. What do we need to know? A quick scouting report on High Point for maybe those who haven't had a chance to dig in yet this week.
Well, I said this before. I think they're averaging 90 points a game. I think I said first team to 90. That's 3rd in the country. And I've heard some feedback or pushback from fans like, yeah, well, 3 of those games came against non-Division I teams when they scored 120 plus points, and 2 of their 100 plus point games was against Gardner Webb. That's fair. They did also just score 91 points against Winthrop in the conference tournament championship game, which is the Super Bowl for all these mid-major or lower level teams when you have to win your conference tournament in order to get in. They have quality guard play. They like to get up and down. They're not a particularly big team. 6'8" is probably what you're going to see on the front court. They have a couple guys on the roster at 6'10". But so this is a game where you're going to be getting out and running. And that's what both teams want to do. If Wisconsin can hit threes like in any other game, they're going to be in a great spot. But I think especially if you have Nolan Winter healthy or available, if you can take advantage of some of that size inside, you're going to be in a really good position. But people look at this externally, and Clark Kellogg was proclaiming this an upset 2 seconds after the bracket was revealed. I understand why. There's a 12-5 upset seemingly every year. Just 2 years ago, James Madison was a 12 and hammered Wisconsin in one of the worst performances I feel like I've seen by the Badgers in the NCAA tournament. My belief is this High Point team is not as good as that James Madison team. That James Madison team beat a top 5 Michigan State team early in the year. It's worth noting, High Point has not beaten or barely played a single quad 1 opponent all year. Quad 1 are basically like top 50 type teams. They're different metrics, but they've only played 2. They lost them both. They didn't play any quad 2 teams, and they entered the conference tournament 22-0 against quad 4 teams. So they've done what they're supposed to do, but they haven't played anybody like Wisconsin.
You're such a brilliant guest, Jesse, because my follow-up was going to be maybe in what ways are there similarities or differences to James Madison? Because I think a lot of people saw this matchup come out and they said, oh, here we go. It's James Madison again. James Madison had beaten some of those really good, like they had played some competition. I think High Point's strength of schedule is on par with Miami, Ohio, who was undefeated until their conference tournament, and yet no one was taking them seriously because that's how bad their schedule was. So I think it's worth talking about.
Here's the other thing I would say, though. I know it's easy to say, they haven't really played anybody. It
Mhm.
always scares me this time of the year. And I mentioned this 2 years ago when Wisconsin was about to play James Madison. You play a team that has won at least 30 games throughout the course of a season. I don't really care who they've been playing. Yes, it matters to a degree because competition will be better. But what it shows you and should show everybody is this is a team that knows how to win games. It knows how to go through the rigors of whatever its schedule is. And they went 15-1 in conference play, and they haven't lost since the middle of January. So that type of winning streak to me builds confidence. And if you hang around long enough against a Wisconsin, then you're going to start to believe you can actually win this game. They're 30-4. They are a very good team, even if they haven't been tested like they're going to be tested on Thursday.
I was listening to Zach on with Ebo this morning, and he was talking about kind of the style of defense that High Point wants to play. They kind of blitz you, and it's chaotic, and they're going to come at you and attack ball handlers. And Kate on the morning show this morning was pointing out, well, then maybe Braden Carrington becomes an important player in this game. If Blackwell's in foul trouble or one of those two guys have to go to the bench to have a third trustworthy ball handler. They had that with Kamari McGee last year. But Braden Carrington in some of these games, even if it's just for a 4 or 5 minute stretch, some of these March Madness games are defined by that guy coming in and playing well for 4 or 5 minutes and just hitting a couple of shots and not turning the ball over, especially against a defense like this.
Absolutely. And we talk about Nolan Winter and his potential status. Jack Janicki is also on the mend. And Greg Gard was asked about both those players on Monday and said on Monday they did as much as they had done since they got hurt. So there's possibility we see both of them. Janicki has been a pretty key contributor off the bench, not necessarily scoring, but defensive wise and in the minutes that he plays. But Braden Carrington, we've seen what his ceiling can be. The dude set a single game program record by making 9 threes against Washington. He made 7 threes against Minnesota. He had struggled here the last week. He did not shoot it particularly well in the Big Ten tournament. It should say something that despite shooting poorly, he's still over 40% on the year from 3. And if he can get hot, and you say this about like 5 different dudes on Wisconsin's team, same with Austin Rapp, that can be a game changer because all of a sudden 2 or 3 possessions in a row, one guy has made all the threes and you can totally turn a game on its head.
Now, it's been out of necessity for the last week or so because Winter's been hurt, but Billy Auskis has played a pretty significant role and hit some big shots at Purdue. Would you have seen this coming, or would you have thought that Billy Auskis had this type of contribution in him going back all the way to the beginning of the year, what you saw maybe in the first month?
No way. And that's not a knock against Alexis Bieliauskas. It was just, how could anybody have any idea what to expect outside of the coaching staff that had really scouted him and had watched all of his games and had had the Zoom conversation with him? He didn't arrive on campus until end of August. Like, he hadn't even been here when he committed. And so coming all the way from Lithuania, you don't know what to expect. I think they had high hopes. Earlier, they brought in Ricardo Greppi as an international prospect. Now, that was a little different. They had a different commitment, and it didn't work out. But Greppi hasn't really been a contributor in any capacity other than on the scout team. You don't see him in the games. And so I didn't know what to expect from Billy Auskis, but he has been so far and away more advanced than what I thought. And he made the 5 threes against Michigan in that upset on the road. He's stepped into the starting role since the 8th game. He gives you some consistent rebounding. He's not always going to get you 12 or 15 points, but he's going to provide value in his role. And he's such a cool customer because that's just his general demeanor.
So you have a video breakdown previewing this matchup. We'll get a Badger Bite tomorrow, I assume. I know you're traveling out to Portland. I assume you're getting ready to publish something. You always are. So what can we follow at Badger Connected on your social media platforms getting ready for the tournament to start on Thursday?
Yeah, so I kind of decided to do this Badger breakdown on a whim. I just wanted to, I did this like 10 years ago when Wisconsin made its Final Four run, so I brought it back. It's a little bit different. My iMovie skills are pretty novice, so it took me maybe 4 hours today to try and put this thing together, but it's got graphics and photos and highlights, but it's 3 keys to this matchup. Just thought I wanted to do something different. So there's that's up right now. The next Badger Bites, which is running on Wednesday, will feature a one-on-one conversation with Tuff Borland, who is Wisconsin's new inside linebackers coach. I know we spent all this time talking about basketball, understandably so. It's March. We ought to. However, this is hard to believe. Wisconsin spring practice starts on Thursday. Just ignore the fact that there was a blizzard on Monday. I don't know what could get you more in the mood for spring ball, but Tuff Borland is the team's new inside linebackers coach. He started here 3 years ago as a graduate assistant, was recruited by Luke Fickell as a linebacker at Ohio State. So it's a window into his coaching journey, and that will be up on Wednesday at Badger Connect. I'll be flying out to Portland on Wednesday and covering the NCAA tournament. So there is a lot going on over at Badger Connect right now.
And you can follow his work at Badger Connect, but follow Jesse on Twitter. He always posts links to everything he's got going on at Jesse Temple. Safe travels, you and Zach. Now, make good choices out there, okay? I know these media, when the beat is on the loose and you're in different, you guys go out and you have these dinners and you do these things. Just make good choices and get back safely. That's all I ask. Okay.
I'm too old for that stuff now. And I should say, when you go to a bowl game, it's different because you might show up and the game isn't for 6 days. They're playing at 10:50 a.m. local time on Thursday morning. So I'm going to be in bed by 9 if it can be helped.
Good. Smart man. All right. We look forward to your coverage, Jesse. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Grant. Talk soon.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, Wisco Sports Show. Last couple minutes here. Appreciate Jesse Temple on Twitter at Jesse Temple. You should follow Badger Connect as well. Always good stories, videos. He's got a basketball breakdown, as you heard him describing earlier. There's a little bit of NFL breaking news, and I think I can react to this. The NFLPA has elected a new executive director. Okay. I remember all the scandal last year with the guy who was there. And I don't know, what was that guy's name? Former NFLPA executive director. What was that guy's name? Not DeMaurice Smith. Lloyd Howell. That's right. Remember this guy had to resign. He was an exec. Yeah, I'm remembering it now. At Booz Allen. And he had personal visits to strip clubs that he charged and just all this stuff. And then I think it was Pablo Torre found out, his podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, like looked into how he was kind of just rushed through the election process and rushed into that job, and everyone, like the players were not given all the info, and like they were kind of kept in the dark because it was clear that the people at the top of the PA just wanted this guy to run it for whatever reason. Remember this? So that guy had to resign, and they've been looking for a new executive director ever since. And the guy they just elected within the last hour, or they announced they elected within the last hour, is J.C. Tretter, who was involved directly with the election of Lloyd, Lloyd Howell? With the last guy. So, again, I don't pretend to know every little detail of this, but if my union had been a mess and had been in a really bad spot and we were trying to fix it, the guy I'd get would not be the guy who was involved in making the union the mess that it is. I know I'm all over the place with my words, but you know what I'm saying? Doesn't make any sense to me. I saw Ben Solak, ESPN. Let me pull up this quote from a former story that J.C. Tretter did, and he gave a couple of quotes here. Solak, of course, I got to Benjamin Solak. God, I hate Twitter search. Makes it so hard to find anything. Benjamin Solak. This is the quote from J.C. Tretter from Kalen Kaler's story. NFL, this is from last summer when this all went down. NFLPA Chief Strategy Officer J.C. Tretter is resigning from his position and has withdrawn himself from consideration for the NFLPA's interim executive director position. So this is when it all hit the fan last summer. Quote, over the last couple of days, it has gotten very, very hard for my family, and that's something I can't deal with, Tretter told CBS Sports on Sunday. So the short bullet points are, I have no interest in being executive director. I have no interest in being considered. I've let the executive committee know that. I'm also going to leave the NFLPA in the coming days because I don't have anything left to give the organization. It's very, 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 very weird. And this is why the NFLPA is the NFLPA and not the MLBPA that will obstruct every improvement that the owners and the fans want from now until the end of time because they can. And this is why Roger Goodell and the owners will run roughshod over the players from now until the end of time because they can. 18 games? Mm-hmm. Playing in Melbourne? Yep. Double buys? No. Nope. This is why the NFL players are basically at the beck and call of anything that the owners want to do. And it's seemingly not going to get any better. Now, maybe J.C. Tretter's the guy. I don't know. It's just very odd. Remember how ridiculous it was that Matt LaFleur promoted Mo Drayton after Sean Menenga left? So the special teams are bad. Mm-hmm. And we need a new special teams coordinator. Yeah. And the one that we just had is gone now? Mm-hmm. So we should promote the guy who worked under the guy who just left? I don't know. That's just what they did. I don't get it. Ben on the live stream says, wasn't J.C. Tretter a Packers bust? No, he was a pretty good player. He was a center, and then he went to Cleveland for a while. He was a pretty good player. He was a very good player. And he might be a good exec. It's just very weird how this all came to pass. Very weird how this all came to pass. Again, if my union was in an awful spot, I wouldn't want to elect the guy who had a large hand in putting the union in the position that it's in. Whatever. This doesn't interest me that much, but it's a pretty big story, and it's perfect for the last 5 minutes of the show. Tomorrow, more March Madness talk, and we can react to the World Baseball Classic final, which is tonight. I'm looking forward to watching. Have a great night. Thank you for listening, always.